Welcome students, welcome to fourth session for this chapter Federalism of your book Democratic Politics class 10th. In earlier sessions, we studied about meaning of federalism, features of Indian federal system, and some related topics like organization of states in India, language policy in India, central state relationship in India. We will continue this topic in this session also. Here we will study in detail about the third tier of government, which I mentioned when we were studying the main features of Indian federal system. There I mentioned that in original constitution there is a reference of two sets of government, one at central level, other at state level. Central level, commonly known as union government, the main work of this government is to look after national issues, look after those issues which are of national importance and which require that unified policy. And there is another set that is at the state level. State governments look after regional issues. Later on, one more tier of government was included, and which is known as Panchayati Raj system or local government. Now we will study this thing in detail. First thing, under this topic, we will study decentralization in India. So first we will start, what does decentralization mean? Decentralization means taking away powers from central government and state government and giving it to local government. This process is simply known as decentralization. In simple words, we can say that more and more power sharing and establishment of democracy at grassroots level, which is the ideal set by Gandhiji. Now, why this decentralization is required? The main reason is that India is a vast country. It's such a huge territory which cannot be controlled from one level, that is from central level. With the result, states were created. But some of the states are also very huge in size. With the result, they cannot be controlled only by the state government. So third tier of government is required so that local issues can be addressed. There is one more reason for this decentralization or creation of third tier of government. That is, in India, that lots of internal diversity is there also in states. With the result, in order to address those diversities, third tier of government was required. With the result, three-tier system has been established in India. This third tier is very useful because local problem can be easily understood by local people. Local people are aware of the resources available and they can give best solution to these local problems. Local problems like may be related to street lights, may be related to cleanliness of roads in nearby areas, may be related to drainage system. So these are the local issues and which can be easily solved at local level. Another thing, this way people directly participate, and when they directly participate, it's a training for democracy. And another thing, when people identify their problems, they collect resources, they try to solve those problems. That way, it enhances their confidence level, and it will help them taking decisions. This will improve their decision making power. all these are the advantages of decentralization and the introduction of third tier of government in India. Constitution makers were aware of this fact that India is a huge country and there are lots of diversity in India. So there was provision of municipality, municipal corporation and panchayat earlier also, but they were not taken seriously. Seriously in the sense, no elections, no regular elections were conducted for these bodies. These bodies did not get any resources. Power was not given to them by state governments. So they were not acting in a manner which were they supposed to act. But in 1992, an amendment was made in the constitution which empowered these bodies, this local government. According to this constitution, that it is mandatory to conduct regular election in local governments, be it panchayat, municipality or municipal corporation, that on regular interval there should be elections. Another thing, that representation is given to socially backward classes in the form that seats are reserved for them, like for SC, ST, OBCs, that means scheduled castes, scheduled tribes and other backward classes. And one third positions at all level are reserved for women so that they can be given proper representation. Another important thing, elections are now being conducted on regular basis, and now who will conduct these elections? Yes, an independent body known as State Election Commission. In class 9th, you studied about Election Commission, and it is an independent body which is responsible conducting election in India in free and fair manner. Similarly, similar type of body is found at state level also, and the duty of the State Election Commission is to conduct these election in free and fair manner. Along with it, now it's mandatory for states to share power, to give resources to these local governments, but this sharing varies from state to state. So now we can see, we can analyze that after 1992, these local bodies, this panchayati system has been strengthened by the provisions introduced in this amendment. Now regular elections are there, elections are free and fair, proper representation is given to marginalized groups, women, and above all they are getting some power, some resources from the state government. Now let's revise what all we have studied. We have studied what is decentralization, why decentralization is required in India, how is it useful for Indian people. After that, we studied about the amendment which was done in the year 1992 in order to strengthen, in order to empower our local government. Now we will study, in this segment we will study something about the how does the panchayati system work, or how does the municipality and municipal corporation work at urban area, in urban areas. So we will start from rural area about the panchayati system. Above all, there are Gram Sabhas. Gram Sabha consists of all the voters of that particular village. All the voters are the member of that Gram Sabha, and it conducts meeting twice or thrice in a year. And the duty of Gram Sabha is to look after the working of Gram Panchayat. We will discuss Gram Panchayat later. and it also approves the budget of Gram Panchayat. So above all, there is Gram Sabha. After that comes the Gram Panchayat. Gram Panchayat may be of maybe a single Gram Panchayat for a village, or there may be a Gram Panchayat for 2 or 3 villages. There can be one Panchayat. And elected members are there in Gram Panchayats, and they are known as Panch and Sarpanch. And it is a decision-making body, and it looks after the welfare of villages. So what we studied? First we studied about Gram Sabha. Gram Sabha means all the voters of village are, that particular village are the members of Gram Sabha. And the work of Gram Sabha is to approve budgets and review performance of Gram Panchayat. After Gram Sabha, there is Gram Panchayat. Gram Panchayat consists of Sarpanch and Panch, and it is a decision making body and elected by all the voters of village. And few Gram Panchayats create Samiti or Mandal, and all the Samiti and Mandals create Zilla Parishad at district level. Almost all the members are elected of a Zilla Parishad, and MLAs and member of Lok Sabha are also the member of Zilla Parishad. These MLAs and member of parliament, not member of parliament, actually member of Lok Sabha of that district are the member of Zilla Parishad. And the political and the chairperson of Zilla Parishad is the political head of Zilla Parishad. So what is the chairperson? Chairperson is the political head. So let's revise this segment. That first there is Gram Sabha. Gram Sabha, all the voters are of that particular village are the members of Gram Sabha. Duties of Gram Sabha is to approve budget of Gram Panchayat and also to supervise and to review the work done by the Gram Panchayats. Gram Panchayat elected by all the voters of the village, and it consists of Panch and Sarpanch, and it is a decision making body. Some Panchayats together create Samiti or Mandal, and all the Samiti and Panchayats create Zilla Parishad at district level, and there are only elected number of elected members in Zilla Parishad, and member of Lok Sabha, and MLAs of that district are the member of Zilla Parishad, and the chairperson of the Zilla Parishad is the political person of that Zilla Parishad. Now let's come to urban area. Urban areas, there are municipalities and municipal corporations. Municipalities are found in small towns, and municipal corporations are found in big cities. Here also elected members are there, and in municipal corporations, mayor is the chairperson, is the political head of municipal corporation. So in this way we have studied, in short it is given in your book that this is the way panchayat system works at village level, and in urban area we have municipalities and municipal corporation to look after local issues. Now we come to the segment where we have to review whether the third tier introduced in Indian system is useful or not. And of course this is very useful, as now the democracy is at grassroots level. OBCs, SCs, STs, women are given lots of representation, and lakhs of representatives are there in local government level. That is now democracy is penetrating at grassroots level, at local. But some lacunas are there, and obviously we will overcome very quickly. And one of the lacuna is there that state governments are not giving enough power and enough resources to these local governments. But I'm sure, and we should expect that very soon local governments will start working in more independent and autonomous manner, and our local issues will be dealt in better manner. So let's revise the whole chapter. This was all about the chapter, and we will revise the whole chapter. First, the term is the name of the chapter is federalism. So obviously you should know what does federalism mean. Federalism means power sharing between, at least between two sets of government, center and state. Main features of federalism are that is there should be two sets of government, there should be a definite jurisdiction, their existence, the central and state government, the existence should be constitutionally guaranteed. Judiciary plays important role in interpreting constitution, and judiciary acts as an umpire between center and states. Revenues are also divided between center and state, and the constitution, the basic structure of constitution cannot be amended unilaterally. Then we discussed that the role of central government is of an anchor. It unites, it integrates the country, and along with it, it treats, it entertains, it looks after issues related to national importance. And role of a state government is to address regional issues. After that, we studied that federation can be formed through two routes. One is coming together, another one is holding together. Coming together means when some independent countries decide that they will form a bigger unit or a federation for security reason, like USA and erstwhile USSR were formed. Another type of federation is holding together, when the country decides that there would be two sets of government, one at central level and other at state level. This type of federation is known as holding together, and this type of federal system is found in India. After that, we studied about the federal features of India, and there we studied first thing that the term federation has not been used in the Indian constitution. In place of federation, the phrase that India is the union of state has been mentioned. But when we look at our constitution, we find number of provisions which confirm that India is a federal country, that we have two sets of government in original constitution. Later on, third tier was introduced, and the power is divided between center and state through three lists: union list, state list, concurrent list, and residuary list. That means union list, central government will make laws. In state list, state government will make laws, and concurrent list, both center and state will make laws. In case of conflict, the laws made by the central government will prevail, and those subjects which are not mentioned in any of the list will belong to this residuary list, and central government has power to make laws on this. So this clearly shows that in India, center is more powerful than states. After that, we discussed that in Indian Union, all the states do not enjoy equal powers. There we studied about union territories. There we studied about some of the northeastern states, and earlier in your book it was given that Jammu and Kashmir used to enjoy special status as they had their separate constitution, but it's no longer there. Now the Article 370 has been removed, and now they no longer enjoy any special status, and they don't have any separate constitution. After that, we discussed that the basic structure of Indian Constitution cannot be amended unilaterally. For this type of amendment, the central government, both the houses of central parliament, should pass it by two-third majority, and this should be ratified by the legislature of at least half of the state. Another thing we studied, that in case of any confusion or any ambiguity as far as any provision of constitution is concerned, it is solved by the constitution will be interpreted by the judiciary. And judiciary acts as an umpire between center and state, between states, among states. So judiciary plays very important role. Then we studied that resources are divided between center and government. They can levy taxes, they can collect money for conducting various functions which they are supposed to do, which they are supposed to perform to run the government. After that, in last previous session, we studied about that these constitutional provisions are very important. They are important so as they provide guidelines to center and state government to follow the principle of federation or federal system. But in India, the beauty is this, that Indian people have acknowledged that there is diversity in India. They have accepted it, and they have lots of respect for this diversity. And our constitution makers have also made certain provisions which have accommodated this diversity so beautifully that all these communities, all these groups, all these diversities are very well adjusted, very well accommodated, and a federal system is practiced in true sense. In order to give representation to major languages of India, states have been organized on the basis of language. Some of the states have been created on the basis that representation should be given to marginalized group, to certain cultural group, and to develop certain areas, these new states were created. After that, language, when it comes to language policy, I have already told you that 1300 languages are being spoken by Indians, and out of those grouping was made, and 22 languages including Hindi has been included in Indian Constitution in Schedule 8. Hindi has been accepted as official language, and English is also given the status of official language. Most of the states are using their mother tongues as regional mother tongue as official language. Hindi has never been imposed. It is being promoted but never being imposed. As far as center-state relations are concerned, now they are improving. Just after independence, the center-state relations were not at all on federal line. Center and most of the state have government of same party, so states were not acting in autonomous manner as an independent units. But now after 1990s, with the growth of regional parties, with the trend of coalition government, and because of Supreme Court or judiciary, the central state relations are becoming more and more federal in nature. And in today's session, we discussed about decentralization in India. It is very much required as India is a vast country with lots of regional diversity. So in order to address regional diversities and local needs, decentralization is required, and for that reason, third tier of government has been introduced, and an amendment was done in the year 1992 with the aim to strengthen this local body, through which now regular elections are being conducted by an independent state election commission. Seats are reserved, proper representation is are being given to scheduled castes, scheduled tribes, OBCs, women, and now states are giving some powers and resources to these local government. After that, we discussed about the rural, in a rural area, how panchayati system is functioning, gram sabha, gram panchayat with the help of panch and sarpanch, and after that Samiti and mandals are formed, and Samiti and mandals create Zilla Parishad, where all elected members are there, and a member of Lok Sabha and MLAs of that particular district are also the member of Zilla Parishad. In urban areas, we have municipalities and municipal corporation. In the small towns, municipalities are found, and in big cities, municipal corporations are found, and the political head is known as mayor. And last but not the least, we reviewed the performance of third tier of government, and we all know that it is working in very good manner. It's giving a representation to more than 36 lakh people. They are elected. 36 lakh people are elected and giving representation to women, other marginalized group. Yes, some of the lacunas are there, and one is that state government are not giving proper power and share and resources to these local bodies, but we are sure that in near future these local bodies, this local government will become more powerful and will start working in more independent and autonomous manner in order to make this federal system in India more successful. Thank you very much. This was all for this chapter. This was all for this session. Thank you.